There is something that you're avoiding right now. It could be a cold shower, it could be confronting a traumatic event of the past, but there's something that you're avoiding because it's painful to confront it. And this makes sense. I understand why that would be your reaction because suffering is, it doesn't feel good. Suffering is suffering, right? Nobody wants to have to mourn the loss of their mother. Nobody wants to have to deal with these difficult events. Nobody wants to sit down and confront themselves with their own inadequacy. But I want you to take this new perspective. Actually, before that, I want to take a look at this book by Viktor Frankl called Man's Search for Meaning. In this book, he essentially breaks his book up into two sections. The first is a mini autobiography where he talks about his experiences in the concentration camps during Nazi Germany. And in the second part, he talks about his own version of therapy called logotherapy, which is based on finding the meaning in life and using that as a means of therapy. He recounts, I believe in the first part of the book, that despite all the suffering around him, there were still people who were able to remain positive, who were able to still give words of encouragement and tell everyone that there was hope. During these times, these people were super emaciated. They were working 12, 14 hours a day to build railroads for Nazi Germany. As a matter of fact, he recounts that in this book. He talks about how when he was a doctor in the camps, when he was there taking care of patients with typhus and other conditions, he was given 5 pills of aspirin for over 40 patients that were meant to last over a week. And he says that in the more severe cases of typhus, he would give them half a pill. And in the cases that were lighter, that weren't as severe, only a word of encouragement and nothing else. Because imagine 5 pills of aspirin. He had to distribute that over the course of a week. He couldn't, even as much as he wanted to, he couldn't. Because then the guys who were suffering more, who were in more pain, I should say, they wouldn't be able to receive any treatment at all. Despite these conditions, there were still people who were able to remain positive, who still somehow kept their sanity, their compassion, their empathy, their humanity. So, how is this possible? How is it possible that men could be in so much pain, but yet there's such a great disparity between these two groups? Some people who start caving into the more primitive side of just like feeling hunger and then going crazy, or versus the people who were able to still act reasonably, act within their own moral compass. The main difference between the two is their perspective of suffering. So, and this is what I want you to think about. Suffering is suffering in as much as it is considered suffering. So, you can only suffer as much as you believe you are suffering. If you don't believe, it doesn't matter how bad the pain is. If you do not believe that you're suffering, or you have found meaning in your suffering, you cannot be destroyed. Because you have a spiritual wealth greater than most people. You have a spiritual wealth that transcends just the sensory experience. I want to draw you to an example from the second part of this book. Page 113, The Meaning of Suffering, where an elderly general practitioner consulted him with severe depression because he could not get over the loss of his wife. Victor asks him what would have happened if his wife had survived and that he had died instead. And then the old man replies, damn, yeah, she would have suffered a lot. And so Victor then responds, don't you see that Because you are suffering now, you have spared her the suffering. She has died, and you have spared her the suffering of dealing with your death at the expense of needing to experience the pain yourself. The man then gets up, shakes his hand, and then walks out. Like I just said, pain is only pain. Suffering is only suffering. My bad. In as much as it is considered suffering. If you could be going through whatever. And I want you to apply this into an actionable step. This is going to be your actionable step right now. Go to your shower and turn it on the coldest setting possible. I want you to feel the cold like air hitting your skin. I want you to think that the thoughts you usually think, that oh, this is going to be so terrible, this is going to be painful, this is going to be, oh my god, the cold sucks. And then I want you to just consider, I want you to repeat that quote to yourself. Suffering is only suffering in as much as it is considered suffering. And you can make it more personal if that's effective to you. Suffering is only suffering in as much as I consider it suffering. And then step in. And step in keeping that in mind. That this, it may hurt you a little bit physically. It may sting a little bit. But ultimately, nothing on the outside can make you suffer internally. Because the mind and the internal is something within our own control. The mind will always be, no matter where you are. And this is why people say that men like Nelson Mandela could be thrown in prison, yet remain freer than most people in the modern developed world, where they have significantly more freedom compared to those in developed, even ruined countries. It's because the internal is always within our range of control. We're always free enough to control our perspectives of things, to control our reactions to the world, to control what we believe about our experiences and ourselves. We're always in control internally. And so, to allow external events to control you it's foolish. Why would you do that to yourself? If you know you have the power to control yourself internally and decide whether or not this pain is going to make you suffer or not, why would you choose the former? Why would you choose to suffer? It makes no sense, right? So, like I just said, turn on the cold shower at the coldest setting, step in, and when you step in, consider the fact that you will only suffer as much as you think that you're suffering. That's all for this video. I'm going to link this book in the description because this is really good. Though I suggest that if you're a beginner to these kinds of topics, if you're a beginner to books on purpose, I'm gonna link two books. The first one is The Alchemist, and I want you to read that before you dive into this book. After you've read The Alchemist and you've experienced a little bit more, then you can pick this up. I'll link both, though. Obviously, you still have the freedom to do whatever you want. But remember, the advice I'm giving you right now is not advice that I'm just saying just because, oh, well, you're dumb and you're not ready. It's because somebody else told me the same thing. And they told me to hold off on this. And now that I'm reading it, I can see why. So, yeah, read The Alchemist first and then read this afterwards. That's all for this video. Have a good night.